Threads of Promise. The first time Olivia Patel saw Marcus Westfield, she wasn't looking for love. At 32, she had built a comfortable life as a botanical photographer, capturing the silent beauty of plants for science journals and gallery exhibitions. Her apartment overlooking Seattle's Pike Place Market was filled with greenery and light, a sanctuary that reflected her orderly, purposeful existence. "These orchids are extraordinary," Marcus said, approaching her at the university greenhouse where she was photographing rare specimens. His voice carried the slight lilt of someone who had lived abroad. "The way you're capturing them, it's like you're revealing their secrets." Olivia glanced up from her camera, surprised. Most people hurried past her work without noticing. "They do have secrets," she replied. "This one only blooms for 48 hours every 7 years. Marcus smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "Then I'm doubly fortunate today to see both the bloom and the artist." He wasn't what Olivia expected from a visiting professor of hydrology. His tweed jacket had patches at the elbows, and his curly hair fell across his forehead in a boyish way that contradicted the silver at his temples. There was something refreshingly honest about his enthusiasm. Their conversation moved from rare plants to climate research, and somehow ended with coffee at a tiny cafe where the barista knew Olivia by name. Marcus spoke of growing up in Vermont, his research on water conservation, and his recent move to Seattle after life changes he didn't elaborate on. "I was married," he explained eventually, turning his coffee cup slowly. "For 8 years. We wanted different things. She couldn't understand why I'd want to uproot our lives for research opportunities. So I came to Seattle alone, starting fresh." Olivia understood starting fresh. After watching her parents' volatile marriage implode, she'd always chosen caution over passion, independence over vulnerability. Her relationships had been careful, measured things that eventually withered from lack of sunlight. But Marcus was different. He spoke of his work with such conviction, his eyes lighting up when discussing future projects. "I'm building something that will last," he told her on their third date as they walked along the waterfront. "Something meaningful. I just needed the right person to share it with." Over the following months, Olivia found herself relaxing into the possibility of a shared future. Marcus kept a toothbrush at her apartment, then clothes, then his collection of first-edition environmental texts. He worked late sometimes, traveling for conferences or field research, but always returned with small treasures: a pressed flower from Montana, a volcanic stone from Oregon. "I never thought I'd meet someone who sees the world the way I do," Marcus said one evening, as they sat on her balcony watching ferries cross the Sound. "Someone who understands that beauty and science aren't separate things." 6 months after they met, Marcus took her to a hillside overlooking the city. "I'm looking at property here," he said, spreading architectural drawings on a picnic blanket. "A home with a greenhouse attached. Room for a family someday. What do you think?" Olivia felt something unfurl inside her, a tendril of hope she'd kept carefully contained. "You're serious about this? About us?" "I've never been more certain of anything," Marcus said, taking her hands. "I want roots, Olivia. With you." That night, as Marcus slept beside her, Olivia allowed herself to imagine their life together. A sun-filled home, perhaps children with his curly hair and her analytical mind. Holidays spent among family instead of alone. After years of carefully tending only to her own garden, she was ready to create something together. She didn't notice the small inconsistencies at first, the calls he took in the other room, the weekends that mysteriously filled with research obligations, the way he never invited her to department functions. She was too busy falling in love with the future he painted in broad, beautiful strokes. "Trust requires patience," her grandmother had always said. And so Olivia was patient, believing that the tapestry of their life together was simply being woven slowly, thread by careful thread. Woven deceptions. The first thread of doubt appeared on an ordinary Tuesday. Olivia had been dating Marcus for nearly a year when she stopped by the university hydrology department to surprise him with lunch. The administrative assistant glanced at her blankly when she mentioned Marcus Westfield. "We don't have a professor by that name," the woman said, checking her computer. We have a Marcus Westfield who guest lectured last spring, but he's not faculty. He's affiliated with the Portland Institute. Olivia felt her cheeks warm. There must be some mistake. He's been teaching here for over a year. The woman's expression softened with pity. I've been here 17 years, dear. No Marcus Westfield on our faculty. Olivia stumbled back to her car, lunch forgotten, her mind racing through possibilities. Perhaps he worked in a different department? But he'd spoken so specifically about his hydrology research, his graduate students. That evening, she casually asked about his day, watching his face for signs of deception as he described a faculty meeting that couldn't have happened. He spoke confidently, mentioning colleagues by name, even showing her photos of fieldwork on his phone. Everything all right? Marcus asked, noticing her silence. Just tired, she lied, disturbed by how easily the falsehood came to her lips. That night, while Marcus showered, Olivia did something she'd never considered before. She looked through his wallet. His faculty ID was there, but something about it seemed off. The university logo looked different than the one she'd seen around campus. The expiration date read 3 years prior. Over the following weeks, Olivia found herself cataloging inconsistencies like specimens in a collection. The calls he always took in another room, the vagueness about where he stayed when traveling, the fact that none of his supposed colleagues ever joined them for dinner. My department keeps to themselves, he'd explain, when she suggested meeting his work friends. Academia can be strangely isolating. Olivia understood isolation. She'd cultivated her solitary life carefully after watching her parents' relationship disintegrate. The thought that she might have invited another kind of destruction into her carefully tended existence made her stomach clench. One evening, while Marcus was supposedly at a conference in Denver, Olivia received a text from him with a photo of the Rocky Mountains at sunset. "Wish you were here," the message read, but something about the image nagged at her. As a photographer, she noticed details others missed. The vegetation wasn't right for Colorado in October. She reverse image searched the photo and found it on a stock photography website. The original had been taken in Montana, not Colorado, 3 years earlier. Olivia's hands shook as she set down her phone. She'd spent her career documenting truth through her lens, recording reality in high-definition detail. How had she missed what was happening right before her eyes? The next day, she called the Portland Institute. "I'm trying to reach Dr. Marcus Westfield," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "One moment," the receptionist replied. "I'll transfer you to his office." So he did work there. Relief washed over her, followed immediately by confusion. Why lie about working in Seattle? When a woman answered, Olivia froze. "Dr. Westfield's office. I'm calling about a research paper," Olivia improvised. "Is Dr. Westfield available this week?" "He's actually on family leave until next month," the woman replied warmly. "I'm Dr. Winters, his department head. Perhaps I can help." Family leave. The words echoed in Olivia's head like thunder. "Hello?" the woman prompted. "When you say family leave," Olivia began. "Oh, he and his wife just welcomed their second child," Dr. Winters said cheerfully. "A baby girl. The whole department sent flowers. Is this someone from the Seattle project?" "The Seattle project. Not a teaching position. Not a new life. A project." Olivia thanked the woman and hung up, her world tilting on its axis. With methodical precision, the same careful attention she gave to her photographic subjects, she began to search for Marcus Westfield online. She found surprisingly little at first, but then discovered a locked Instagram account under the name Westfield Family. The profile picture showed a house with a red door, no people visible. She requested to follow and waited, heart-pounding, for 3 agonizing days until access was granted. And there it was, page after page of evidence. Marcus with a beautiful dark-haired woman named Diane, Marcus holding a toddler boy, recent photos of a newborn, family vacations, anniversary celebrations. The most recent post was from 2 days ago. Marcus holding his new daughter in what appeared to be a living room with large windows overlooking a lake. The caption read, "Home is where the heart is. So grateful for 2 weeks with my growing family before heading back to field research. Blessed Escher family man." The same day he'd sent her the fake Colorado sunset. Olivia didn't cry. Instead, she felt a strange, detached fascination, like observing a rare botanical specimen that had suddenly revealed toxic properties. She'd built her life around documenting truth, yet had somehow missed the elaborate fiction unfolding in her own home. The next evening, when Marcus called from his conference, Olivia answered with practiced normalcy. She asked about Denver's weather. He described a snowstorm that, according to the weather app on her phone, wasn't happening. "I miss you," he said, his voice warm with practiced sincerity. "I've been thinking about those house plans. What if we expanded the greenhouse section? You could have a whole wing for your work." "That sounds perfect," she replied, her voice hollow to her own ears as she stared at a photo on her laptop. Marcus cutting a birthday cake beside a pregnant woman, dated just 3 months ago. Absolutely perfect. Unraveled truth. The Westfield home stood before Olivia like something from a real estate magazine, a craftsman-style house with a wide porch nestled among towering pines overlooking Lake Oswego. The garden was meticulously maintained with native plants arranged in artful clusters. Botanical perfection. Olivia sat in her rental car across the street, camera in her lap more from habit than intent. She'd driven the 3 hours from Seattle that morning after Marcus had texted that his conference would run an extra day. She wasn't entirely sure why she'd come. To confirm what she already knew? To see the physical manifestation of his betrayal? To understand how someone could build such an elaborate tapestry of lies? The front door opened and Diane Westfield emerged, a baby carrier in one hand, holding a toddler's hand with the other. She was tall and graceful, with an artist's scarf draped around her neck and a warm smile as she spoke to her son. Nothing about her suggested she knew her husband led a double life. Olivia slid down in her seat, a strange mix of shame and anger washing over her. She hadn't created this situation, yet she felt like an intruder, the other woman spying on the real family. After Diane drove away, Olivia sat paralyzed, questioning her next move. She could leave now, confront Marcus when he returned to Seattle, and end things without Diane ever knowing. It would be cleaner, less messy. She could retreat to her orderly life and pretend Marcus had been a temporary madness. But something stopped her, the image of Diane's confident smile, her gentle hand guiding her son. How long until Marcus created another fiction with another woman? How many more lives would he fracture with his architect's precision? Before she could reconsider, Olivia was walking up the path to the red door. She rang the bell, half hoping no one would answer, but footsteps approached almost immediately. The door swung open to reveal an elderly woman with Marcus's same curly hair, now silver. "Can I help you?" she asked pleasantly. "I'm sorry to intrude," Olivia said. "I was looking for Diane Westfield." "She's just taken the children to the pediatrician," the woman replied. "I'm Eleanor, Marcus's mother. Are you from the university?" Marcus's mother. Of course he would need childcare during his research trips to Seattle. "No," Olivia said, her voice surprisingly steady. "My name is Olivia Patel. I'm a friend of Marcus's from Seattle." Eleanor's expression shifted subtly, a flicker of something like recognition, then concern. "Please come in. Diane should be back within the hour." The home's interior was a seamless blend of academic and family life. Bookshelves stuffed with hydrology texts alongside children's stories. Framed botanical prints, some Olivia recognized as her own work, gifted to Marcus. "Next to family photos. Would you like some tea?" Eleanor asked, leading her to a sunlit kitchen that overlooked a sloping garden. "You've come a long way." "You know who I am," Olivia said, realization dawning. Eleanor sighed, setting down a kettle. "I suspected." Marcus mentioned an Olivia in Seattle, a photographer. "He showed me some of your work. Quite extraordinary." "Did he mention we've been together for over a year? That we're planning to build a home together?" The words came out sharper than Olivia intended. Eleanor's face crumpled. "Oh, my dear, I feared something like this. The separate phone, the vague explanations." She sank into a chair. "My son has his father's worst qualities." I'd hoped. With therapy, with Diane's patience, Olivia felt suddenly exhausted. "Does Diane know?" About any of it? She knows something isn't right, Eleanor replied carefully. But no, not the extent. Marcus has always been compartmentalized, even as a child. Different versions of himself for different situations. The front door opened before Olivia could respond. Voices filtered in, a child's excited chatter, a woman's gentle responses. Olivia stood, instinct telling her to flee, but Eleanor placed a weathered hand on hers. "Stay," she said quietly. "Diane deserves the truth, and so do you." When Diane entered the kitchen, baby carrier in hand, her eyes moved from her mother-in-law to Olivia with curious warmth. Then understanding dawned slowly across her face, not from recognition, but from the palpable tension in the room. "You're not from the university?" she said softly. "No," Olivia replied. "I'm from Seattle." Diane nodded as if this confirmed a long-held suspicion. She turned to Eleanor. "Would you mind taking Noah upstairs? And the baby?" After Eleanor left with the children, Diane filled 2 glasses with water and sat across from Olivia. "Tell me everything," she said. "Please." So Olivia did. She described meeting Marcus at the university greenhouse, their growing relationship, the future they'd planned together. She showed Diane the architectural drawings for their supposed future home, the same detailed renderings he'd shown when proposing the addition to the house they were sitting in. Diane listened without interruption, her face a careful mask. When Olivia finished, she disappeared briefly and returned with a leather-bound journal. "Marcus keeps records of everything," she said, opening to a marked page. "Research logs, he calls them. I found this last month." The journal contained meticulous notes, dates of meetings with Olivia, observations about her reactions to gifts, notes on her preferences. Like field research on a subject. The clinical detachment was more devastating than any passionate affair might have been. "There are others," Diane said quietly. "Before you. I discovered one 2 years ago. He promised to get help. I thought, with the new baby, with his promotion." She trailed off, her composure finally cracking. "I'm sorry. This must be terrible for you too." The 2 women sat in silence, united in a grief neither had anticipated that morning. Outside, the carefully tended garden flourished in practiced perfection, just as the lives Marcus had designed seemed beautiful from a distance, but proved hollow at their core. Broken patterns. The days following Olivia's discovery passed in a strange, suspended reality. She and Diane had spent hours talking that afternoon, piecing together the elaborate deception that had entwined their lives. By evening, they had reached an understanding that transcended their shared heartbreak, a plan forged in mutual respect rather than vindictive alliance. "He's flying back to Seattle tomorrow," Olivia had said, showing Diane the text Marcus had sent about his conference ending. "But he'll actually be coming home to me," Diane had replied, a bitter smile playing at her lips. "At least for a night before he tells me about his next research trip." They'd agreed that Olivia would return to Seattle and maintain normalcy until Marcus arrived. Then she would simply not be there. No confrontation, no dramatic scene, just absence and a single photograph left on her dining table. The photograph, taken with precise technical skill, showed Olivia and Diane sitting together at the Westfield family home, Eleanor visible in the background with the children. A simple message written on the back, "We know. Don't contact either of us again." Now, 3 weeks later, Olivia sat in a cafe overlooking Elliott Bay, watching ferries cut white paths across the slate-gray water. The autumn rain tapped against the windows in a soothing rhythm as she edited. Photographs for an upcoming exhibition. Images of fractured geodes revealing unexpected beauty within their broken forms. Her phone buzzed with a text from Diane. "He finally came for his things yesterday. Brought a notarized separation agreement and didn't meet my eyes once. How are you holding up?" Over these weeks, an unexpected friendship had formed between the 2 women. Not built on their shared experience with Marcus, but on the discovery of complementary strengths. Diane, an environmental policy lawyer, had a pragmatic resilience Olivia admired. Olivia, in turn, offered Diane a perspective unencumbered by shared history with Marcus. Better than expected, Olivia typed back. The University Gallery wants to feature my geode series. Beauty Through Fracture, they're calling it. Perfect, Diane replied. Noah asks about the camera lady daily. He loved the picture book you sent. Olivia smiled, remembering the wide-eyed toddler who had regarded her with innocent curiosity that day in the Westfield home. She'd sent him a photography book for children, filled with close-ups of insects and plants, that often went unnoticed. Their connection should have been awkward, first wife and would-be second wife, but instead felt like finding an unexpected path through difficult terrain. They spoke nearly every day, sharing not just updates about Marcus's attempts to contact them, ignored by both, but about their own evolving lives. Have you spoken to Josephine yet? Diane asked, referring to the therapist she'd recommended. First session yesterday, Olivia replied. She asked interesting questions about my photography. Why I prefer plants to people as subjects? And what did you say? Olivia paused, considering. That plants reveal their true nature without pretense. But I'm starting to think that was a convenient excuse for keeping my distance. The realization had been uncomfortable, but clarifying. Olivia had always believed her careful, independent life was a strength, a deliberate choice after witnessing her parents' volatile relationship. But perhaps it had also been a defense mechanism that left her vulnerable to someone like Marcus, who seemed to offer connection without requiring true intimacy. Eleanor asked if you'd consider visiting again, Diane wrote. No pressure. She enjoys your perspective on native plantings. The invitation touched Olivia unexpectedly. During that fateful first visit, after the initial shock had passed, Eleanor had taken her on a tour of the garden, discussing the indigenous species she'd incorporated. In that strange afternoon, they'd formed a tentative connection entirely separate from Marcus. I'd like that, Olivia replied, surprised to find she meant it. Later that evening, as rain continued to drum against her windows, Olivia sorted through old photographs, not of Marcus, but of her own life before him. Images of expeditions to remote locations, close studies of rare alpine flowers, quiet moments of solitary beauty. She'd always seen these as evidence of her self-sufficiency. Now she recognized something else. A person observing life, but rarely participating in it fully. Always behind the lens, documenting, but not experiencing. Her phone rang. Not Diane this time, but her gallery manager, Richard. I've been thinking about your exhibition, he said without preamble. What if we pair your geode photographs with portraits? People who've experienced transformation through challenge, their faces alongside the fractured stones. I don't photograph people, Olivia said automatically. Exactly, Richard replied. That's what would make it powerful. The technical skill you bring to botanical subjects applied to human complexity. Think about it. After they hung up, Olivia stood before her wall of prints, seeing them with new eyes. Her work had always captured truth with precision, the exact structure of a pistille, the perfect symmetry of a leaf. What might she see if she turned that same careful attention to human subjects? What truths might she discover, in others and in herself? The idea both terrified and exhilarated her, like stepping from the safety of observation into the uncertainty of participation. The risk of closer connection also meant the possibility of deeper understanding. She picked up her camera, adjusting the settings with practiced fingers, and turned to face the mirror. For the first time in her career, Olivia Patel, who had documented countless rare and beautiful specimens, prepared to capture her own image, not as she wished to appear, but as she truly was in this moment of transformation. The shutter clicked, recording what she had never before allowed herself to fully see. A woman not broken by deception, but revealed through it, her strength more evident in the aftermath of fracture than it had ever been in the careful construction of her previous life. Restitched Futures. 2 years later, on a crisp spring morning, Olivia adjusted her tripod on the shores of Lake Oswego. The exhibition that had begun as Beauty Through Fracture had evolved into a traveling installation called Parallel Growth, pairing her botanical photographs with portraits of people who had reinvented themselves after significant life disruptions. Today, she was photographing the final subject for the series, Diane Westfield, sitting on a dock with her children, 3-year-old Emily on her lap and 5-year-old Noah dangling his feet in the water. Behind them, Eleanor tended to native wildflowers that edged the property, her silver curls catching the morning light. "Perfect," Olivia called. "Noah, can you look at that dragonfly over the water? Emily, stay just as you are." The shutter captured the moment. Not a posed family portrait, but a genuine instant of connection. Noah's profile showed the same curiosity he'd exhibited when Olivia had first taught him to use a magnifying glass to examine leaf structures. Emily, born just before the unraveling of her parents' marriage, knew no life other than this reconfigured family where her grandmother and Auntie Liv were constant presences. Diane glanced up, meeting Olivia's eyes with a smile that acknowledged the strange journey that had brought them here. Their friendship had deepened over shared holidays, parenting challenges, and professional collaborations. Diane's environmental law practice had retained Olivia to document watershed restoration projects for legal testimony. "That's a wrap," Olivia said, lowering her camera. "The gallery wants the final prints next week." "Hard to believe it's been 2 years," Diane said as Noah ran to help Eleanor with her gardening. "Sometimes it feels like another lifetime." "In some ways it was," Olivia replied, sitting beside her on the dock. They rarely spoke of Marcus these days. He had moved to Australia for a research position, according to Eleanor, who maintained minimal contact. The divorce had been finalized, the legal ties severed, though he sent occasional gifts for the children that arrived with cards signed Dad, but no personal notes. "Benjamin called this morning," Diane said casually, referring to an environmental historian she'd been dating for 6 months. "He wanted to know if we'd be interested in joining his department's camping trip next month. All of us, including you. Apparently there's a rare lichen colony he thinks you should photograph." Olivia smiled, thinking of Benjamin's earnest enthusiasm for both his work and Diane's children. Unlike Marcus, he made no grand promises about the future, just showed up consistently, his actions aligned with his words. "I'd like that," she said. "And speaking of trips, Thomas and I finalized plans for Ecuador in August. 2 weeks documenting cloud forest biodiversity." Tomas Rodriguez had entered her life unexpectedly, a botanical illustrator who had attended her first parallel growth exhibition in Seattle. He'd approached her with thoughtful questions about her photographic technique, then asked if she'd be willing to collaborate on a book about Pacific Northwest ecosystems. Their professional partnership had gradually evolved into something deeper, characterized by a transparency that once would have terrified Olivia, but now felt essential. "You'll miss Emily's birthday," Diane noted. "She'll be devastated." "Actually, we're coming back for it," Olivia replied. Thomas suggested it. "He's already working on a pop-up book for her, illustrations of Ecuadorian butterflies that actually flutter when you turn the pages." Diane raised an eyebrow. "He's good with children for someone who doesn't have any." "He's good with people," Olivia corrected. "He pays attention, really sees them." The quality had initially made Olivia uncomfortable, his ability to notice details about her that others missed. She'd been accustomed to being the observer, not the observed. But Thomas watched the world with an artist's eye and a naturalist's patience, finding wonder in both the spectacular and the ordinary. Most importantly, he understood her need for independence alongside connection. When she'd explained her unconventional friendship with Diane and the children, he'd simply nodded and asked to meet them, curious rather than threatened by the family she'd helped rebuild from unexpected circumstances. "Auntie Liv!" Noah called, running toward them with a trowel in hand. "Grandma Eleanor found spotted salamander eggs. Come see!" Olivia grabbed her macro lens and followed him to where Eleanor knelt beside a small garden pond. The elderly woman had become a surprising mentor to Olivia, sharing both botanical knowledge and hard-earned wisdom about resilience. "Just in time," Eleanor said, pointing to a translucent mass attached to a submerged branch. "They'll hatch within days." Olivia positioned her camera, capturing the delicate eggs illuminated by dappled sunlight. "Noah, do you remember what these will become?" "Larvae with external gills," the boy recited proudly. "Then they'll lose their gills and grow lungs and legs and live on land and in water." "Metamorphosis," Olivia said. complete transformation. Later, as they shared lunch on the porch, Olivia watched Diane laughing at something Benjamin had texted her. Eleanor was teaching Emily to make daisy chains, and Noah was carefully documenting a line of ants with the child-sized camera Olivia had given him for his birthday. None of this was what Olivia had planned for herself 2 years ago. The future she had envisioned with Marcus, the greenhouse home. The orderly life had been replaced by something messier but infinitely more authentic, a blended family formed not through traditional bonds, but through chosen connection, professional collaborations that enriched her art, and a relationship built on mutual respect rather than idealized promises. That evening, as Thomas drove them back to Portland, where they'd share dinner with colleagues before returning to Seattle, he glanced at Olivia reviewing the day's photographs on her camera. "Find any good ones?" he asked. Olivia paused on an image she'd captured without planning. Diane and Eleanor sitting together on a garden bench, their profiles revealing an uncanny similarity despite no biological connection. Behind them, through the kitchen window, Noah could be seen helping Benjamin prepare lunch, both wearing identical expressions of concentration. "I found a family," she said simply. "Not what I thought I wanted, but exactly what I needed." The camera had always been Olivia's tool for documenting truth, but she no longer needed it to recognize the most important truth she'd discovered, that real connection wasn't found in perfect plans or promises of forever, but in the daily choice to see others clearly and allow oneself to be truly seen. As the car wound through pine-covered hills, Olivia thought about the final exhibition, portraits and botanical images side by side, showing how both people and plants could transform after disruption, often growing stronger at the broken places. Her life now wasn't a carefully tended garden with clear boundaries, but a wild, interconnected ecosystem, complex, sometimes chaotic, and continuously evolving. And for the first time, she wasn't just documenting that beauty from a safe distance. She was fully, wonderfully part of it.